A man who's trying to change for you is a man you should not let go. Because men don't try to change for no one. We don't try to change for nothing. But if we're genuinely trying to change for you and you are not seeing those efforts, it kills us inside. Because we feel like we're trying all this stuff, but you're blind to what we're trying. And we feel like we're doing it for no reason whatsoever and getting no progress. If we're really trying to change for you and you're not seeing those efforts, even if it's the littlest things, we're like, please see this, please see it. Because the minute we feel like you're acknowledging our effort is the minute we try even harder to be better.
A relationship can be a beautiful thing, a real blessing when both people show up, grow together, and move in sync. It can elevate your life, sharpen your focus, and even bring out the best version of you. But lately there's been a breakdown happening, not just in couples, but specifically with men in relationships. And it's not always because they stopped caring. Sometimes they just got lost trying to keep the peace. Relationships were never supposed to be perfect, but they're not supposed to feel like psychological warfare either. Unfortunately for some folks, that is precisely what's been happening. So now we've got this question. How did this even start?
When women date a guy, majority of them will claim like they feel that something's missing. Okay, so they feel like something's missing. You will always hear women say this. They'll be like, oh, he is really tall and good looking and he makes a lot of money and he even pays for every date and he picks the spot we're going, but there's just something missing. I don't know what's missing. There's something missing. You will always hear so many women say this, okay? So this is what that means. They sense weakness, but don't know what it is and why, okay? They're lacking connection, but don't know what type of connection they want or they need, or they're even craving.
When a relationship starts off, everything feels right. The energy's there, the chemistry's on point, and both people feel seen. But somewhere down the line, that balance can shift. A woman might start feeling like something's missing, not necessarily love, not necessarily effort, but that extra something. She might not even know what it is, but she knows she doesn't feel it. And when that happens, it becomes a silent frustration. Because to her, that something is what reaffirms the strength of the relationship. And more importantly, the strength of her man. When that strength feels off, it bothers her. And to him, it's confusing because he's still there, still trying, but somehow it's never enough. This right here is what I call the beginning. This is where the deeper rooted problems start, since it's at this point that doubts start to get planted on both sides. The love is undeniably there, but something is missing. Something is still a little off, even if she can't exactly put her finger on it quite yet. This something varies from person to relationship. For instance, one woman might crave more attention. Another might deeply desire more reassurance. Maybe another one wants a bit more comfort or a gentler touch. Whatever it is, a lot of the time, it doesn't quite sink in yet that this is what they want. That period of uncertainty causes a good number of issues. Of course, it's normal to not always immediately know what you want. We need time to look into ourselves after all, and it takes a while to properly assess our needs. But even then, this area of unsureness proves to be a fertile ground for doubt and fear. We see this happen even outside of love. Think about it. Not all of us knew what we wanted to be back when we were children. Some of us were in school, looking at the many roads stretching far and wide towards different destinations. It's not much of a problem when you're, let's say, only 10 years old. But eventually, you need to go to college. When you're around the age of 16 or 17, you're inching closer to that point of decision. You now have to be firm with what you want. And that time span between the starting point to deciding what you actually want proves to be pretty distressing. In relationships, it's very similar. At first, it won't be a big deal, but as time goes on, you're bound to get more agitated. It'll be like having this itch you can't scratch. It's not the end of the world. Sure, but you'd rather not have it there in the first place. Then, of course, the fact that you don't even know what you want yet adds an additional layer of grave frustration. People don't really like feeling directionless or clueless, and that's something I'm certain of. So this is where the second issue takes root. In her mind, a man should just know. He should be ready, aware, and responsive without being told. But for a lot of men, that kind of expectation feels like walking through fog. Because what she's asking for isn't something you can just check off a list. They later come to notice that it's something she feels. And as we know, when feelings start to get all jumbled up in love, it proves to be highly stressful for both parties because now the connection itself is at risk.
Let's talk about a reason as to why you're constantly upset with your partner. And you're always looking for something that you don't like that they're doing. You're frustrated that they don't take you out on dates, so they take you out on a date, but then you're frustrated that they weren't as loving, and then they get a little bit more loving, and then you're frustrated that you don't get to spend enough time with them. Do you see how it's a trickle effect of constantly trying to find the next thing that you're upset about? Ask yourself if a part of you is unhappy with where you're at in your life. How do you feel about your career? How do you feel about your day-to-day life? How do you feel about your hobbies, your friends? What is your mindset like about anything in your life? When you accomplish something, are you putting yourself down and constantly looking for the next thing that you need to accomplish, but you're not happy? Chances are you are probably hard on yourself the same way that you are hard on your partner because you're not satisfied and you're not excited or happy about where you're at. If that sounds like you, then let's talk.
When that connection starts to fade, she notices everything. The tone in his voice, the energy when he walks in the room, how long it takes him to respond, how present he seems when they talk. That element of lack becomes very loud to her. Every conversation feels heavier. Every disagreement hits harder. And the man, he starts to feel defeated, like nothing he does is ever right. This shift in dynamics is where the mutual frustrations really fester. On one hand, the woman feels as though she isn't understood. On the other hand, the man feels inadequate for her. On paper, this is a bad sign for the relationship because really, when you start believing your partner isn't acting in good faith for you anymore, a lot of the faith you initially had in them begins to crumble. Sad to say, but there's a good number of relationships that didn't survive precisely because of all this. See, when we get into a relationship, it almost always feels fairy tale-ish first, at least in you and your partner's perspectives. We always dish out the absolute best of ourselves during the beginning, just to really establish that trust and build up that connection. But good first impressions mean very little when they don't get maintained. And at some point, you'll notice the conflicting parts of you too. Sometimes it can be beneficial, but there will be times that you both need to work around it. And it's that fact that hurts some relationships because not everyone communicates and compromises. There's a very good reason as to why everyone parrots about how communication is king in relationships. It's through it that two different people can work towards the same goal, which in our case, is usually to stay happy and together until the end. And in the absence of those two key things, you can't expect two people to be content together. The compromise and work together part can't even happen in the first place. You can't exactly fix something if you don't know what's broken. A doctor can't cure you without knowing what's wrong. So when the shift in the relationship happens and both man and woman are frustrated, it is easily a major roadblock in both parties' progression.
Understand that when a man has secretly given up on a relationship, he's not going to say anything. He's just going to stop trying. In fact, he's going to give you every reason to leave without actually directly telling you. And so this is what you need to look out for. Number one, when a fight breaks out, he stops trying to resolve anything. Like, he might argue with you, but before anything is actually fixed, he's just going to ignore you and check out. Number two, his energy is literally showing you where he's at. Even if he's not telling you or being honest with you, like, you can tell where he's at by what he's giving off. If you feel lonely when you're in the same room with him, and not just like a one night thing or even like a little season, but like this has been going on for months, he might physically be there, but he is emotionally absent from the relationship. And number three, he no longer asks plans or includes you in anything. I guess it's more like roommates than a partner. Like, he's not asking, how are you feeling today? Or we should go do this together. It's just like, you're just there.
Now for men, this is where a lot tend to fumble. Because instead of addressing the problem, some folks retreat from it. They try, they argue, they explain, and they fight to be understood up until they're too tired to keep fighting anymore. And that's when it happens. The men give up, but don't exactly leave. They stay, but not the same way they used to. They stop speaking up. They stop leading. They stop putting energy into it. Instead, they just go, whatever you want. And that right there, that surrender, which feels like peace at first, is actually the slow death of connection. This, more often than not, becomes the point of no return for a relationship. And let's get this straight. Women don't just want compliance. They want conviction. They don't want a man who folds. They want a man who chooses. Because when you start saying whatever, what she really hears is, I'm done trying. But let's back up a bit here. When we look at it, compliance is a pretty straightforward way to temporarily solve, saying this with air quotes, an issue. When you're tired, feeling inadequate, and already burnt out, it's almost instinctive to just do whatever the other person wants, because in your head, it's easy to feel as though this is the sole way to satisfy them now. So because this is simply for compliance, naturally, the passion just isn't there anymore. It's like being reprimanded by a teacher in middle school as some student who's already sick of school shenanigans. You haven't passed your project yet, and the teacher is keeping a close eye on you and your record. When you do pass the said work, chances are it will be half-assed. Why? Because you're simply doing it since someone important said so. You're doing it to save your grade. In the lens of a relationship, when you already feel the pressure of having a frustrated partner, of course, the first tendency is to try. You'll try to fix it. You'll try to do whatever you can about it. But if all your attempts lead to nowhere, then yes, that flame in you will slowly die out. We don't like feeling as though our efforts are futile after all. So when the burnout happens, you may end up retreating into yourself. You'd come to the conclusion that doing whatever they want is the only solution left. Because if your own previous attempts at fixing the matter didn't work, then clearly the best course of action left is to simply do whatever the woman wants. It's this mix of resignation and helplessness working together, making you think that doing the things outside of what you're told will be useless in the end. And either way, you're losing. Both of you are losing because neither of you are satisfied. You tried a lot, failed, and now are too tired to keep pushing beyond whatever her status quo is. She tried expressing, failed, and is now at a loss. It is then that the distance really sets in. She feels unseen. He feels unappreciated. Both people are still there physically, but emotionally, they're worlds apart. The man thinks, I'm staying. Isn't that love? While the woman thinks, you're staying, but you've stopped showing up.
Your relationship will never work if you're consistently misunderstanding everything that your partner is saying and then getting mad at them based on your interpretation of what you think they're trying to say. Be loving, patient, and understanding enough to hear them out.
The cruel irony is that both are hurting for the same reason. They don't feel understood. One wants more presence, the other wants peace, but neither is communicating what that really means to them. Because when you reach this point, a lot of the time, both are already jaded from the previous frustrations that built up to this. You're worlds apart now due to too many factors that ended up as subtext. And subtext, it can get lost in translation, even if you both initially understood each other pretty well before. Thing is, we tend to make the fatal mistake of assuming that dropping hints will be enough, that silent actions or expressions can convey our messages. Now, to be fair, it is true to some extent. Actions do speak louder than words, and your eyes can tell a lot. The way you react, even subtly, can speak volumes. But these won't suffice, especially for the bigger, more glaring problems in a relationship. Beating around the bush is a fatal move here because little details can get misinterpreted. More misinterpretations lead to more conflict, and more conflict leads to resentment. We do not want to let it fester to that point.
Why is having a conversation with your partner seem like the hardest thing ever? Let me explain. So, for starters, two people in any like type of relationship, but especially an emotional one, two people, all humans have different perception filters, right? So the way we see the world is completely different. We all know that. But the way your filters are shaped by your past, your emotion, like your emotions, your current state of mind, all of that. So let's say like as a kid, you were always brought down. It was always like, you were always micromanaged, right? Then as an adult, when you hear neutral feedback, you might think it's rejection. You might think it's you being criticized. You might think it's you being told you're just not doing good enough. So when you mix these little inklings of things in two different people, well, that surely gets the ball rolling. Secondly, the emotional state changes everything. It changes everything. Your brain, when it's emotional, reduces like your brain's ability to hear things logically literally gets reduced.
How many times did you think your partner's natural RBF is them secretly detesting you? How many times did you see little ticks in facial expression as subtle slights against you? How many times have they gone quiet with you thinking and automatically assuming the worst? These things happen. These little misinterpretations occur more often than you think, and they lead to some of the worst misunderstandings out there. The disconnect manifests the moment major plot points turn into vague footnotes. Look, I'm not telling you to narrate every little thing to your partner like some cheesy YA protagonist from 2013, but come on, as a couple, you have to talk. If you feel stressed, tired, drained, it doesn't matter that those feelings are negative and you don't want to make your partner feel down. Tell them. Part of being in a relationship is being open to each other. I'm telling you, the moment this openness becomes just some optional thing, that's when you practically guarantee having this disconnect between you two to happen. It's not about yapping about every single detail, but rather about not leaving your feelings up for interpretation. Because even if you're an easy person to read, certain factors like exhaustion or anxiety can blur the lines between your partner assuming that you're feeling something negative about one thing and feeling negative about the partner themselves. One bad day, and your partner may just start thinking you're about to break up with them because of the way you sighed earlier. So the bottom line is, be open. Both of you need to take time out of your day to talk and check in on each other. Don't bother keeping secrets. You'll come to find that hiding will only make your partner believe that you're no longer interested, that you're barely holding on anymore. Express your needs and your emotions. That's how it should be. Don't let anyone convince you that bottling things up is okay. Because guess what? Sooner or later, you will come to a breaking point. So instead of letting it all shatter abruptly, be real with your partner and let your bond soften the blow. Let your honesty be the loudest part of you, not your ego. So how do we fix this? It starts with both sides listening, actually listening, not to respond, not to defend, but to understand. Men, stop retreating into silence. Speak up with love. Don't let anger or resentment make room for itself in your relationship. Be truthful about how you feel and never leave your partner in the dark. Women, stop expecting your man to read your mind. Tell him what you need without tearing down who he is. Look into yourself and truly identify what you want. Once you have, be honest about it and talk to your partner. Believe me when I say that this will do you both a favor in the long run, because a relationship only grows when both people are seen, heard, and willing to meet in the middle. And if you can both find the courage to do that, to listen, to learn, and to love through the confusion, you'll stop fighting each other and start fighting for each other again. This is Current Champ reminding you, let love and understanding be the center of your relationship. Peace.
And I'ma just do me. A new thing hold me down on 2 feet. That's 10 toes, bust 4, 5, and 6 foes. Need 2.